Come have a seat in the Skald circle and hear the tale of Hades and Persephone, as told by Casimir. Before we begin our tale, did you know that we release new stories for free every week on Wednesdays? Be certain to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, Spotify, Podbean, or whatever your favorite podcast app is. That way, you'll never miss out when we release free bonus stories other days of the week. Never forget, visit theskaldscircle.com to stay up to date with all of our current happenings, and also to visit our story archive, sorted by origin and region. Now then, this begins the tale of Hades and Persephone. Zeus, king of the gods, was having an affair with the goddess of the harvest, Demeter. They conceived a beautiful goddess named Persephone, who was loved by all for her light-hearted kindness. Demeter was very protective of her daughter, keeping her naive to the ways of the world and dressing her as a child, even as she grew into a woman. She meant to keep her innocent and virginal forever, always by her mother's side. One day, Hades, god of the underworld, happened to glance up at the world above and noticed Persephone playing with a group of nymphs in her field. Now, the underworld was a dark, isolated place, and since it was Hades' job to judge the souls of the dead, there was so much work to be done he hardly ever was able to see his family above. The other gods had grown to fear him, and the mortals hardly dared to utter his name. Hades was a just god, but he grew lonely and cold as he carried out his duties over the centuries. But as he observed Persephone, he was struck immediately by her beauty and her tenderness toward the nymphs. He ended up going back to watch her every so often, feeling his old heart soften each time. Finally, he roused himself to go to Olympus and ask Zeus for Persephone's hand in marriage. Zeus was pleased with this turn of events. Hades was the richest and most stable of all the gods, not to mention powerful. He gave his consent to the marriage. However, Hades knew Demeter would never allow the union, so he decided to spirit Persephone away. One day, when Persephone was alone in her fields, the ground suddenly split open and out sprung a huge chariot pulled by black horses. Hades leapt over the side and scooped Persephone up, and before the girl could even scream, plunged back into the earth. Demeter quickly noticed her daughter was gone and searched frantically for help. Eventually, she found a farmer who had witnessed all of it, and Demeter grew livid, vowing the ground would never produce a stalk of wheat until Persephone was returned. Down in the underworld, Persephone was distraught. Hades was kind to her and showered her with gifts, but she missed her mother on the world above. Hades was saddened, but he was also patient. He put Persephone's throne right next to his, and unlike the other gods, allowed her equal rule alongside him. He treated her not as property, but as someone who would eventually become a friend. When Persephone suggested that another realm be made for the best mortal souls to go to, Hades made it for her. It was called Elysium, the underworld's heaven. Persephone felt conflicted. She missed her mother, but Hades was the only person who'd ever treated her like an adult. She was beginning to fall in love with him. One morning, Persephone went to the underworld's garden and was offered a pomegranate by the gardener. Up until that point, Persephone had resisted eating anything offered to her. She knew that if she ate any food from the underworld, she would be bound to it forever. But that morning, Persephone was so hungry. She took the pomegranate and ate 6 of its seeds. Then abruptly, Hermes, messenger of the gods, appeared before her. He told her that Demeter had caused the earth to freeze and that no crops would grow. Mortals were dying in droves, and the only thing that would stop her was Persephone's return. Persephone reluctantly allowed Hermes to take her to Olympus, where Zeus and Demeter were having it out. Zeus had promised his daughter to Hades without her consent, after all. Persephone tried to convince Demeter that she was all right and that Hades had been kind to her, but Demeter insisted that she had to come home, or else she would let every mortal on earth die of famine. Suddenly the throne room darkened, and the gods turned as Hades stepped out of the shadows. He was holding the partially eaten pomegranate in his hands. Persephone has eaten the fruit of the underworld, Hades said coolly. She must return and rule it with me. While Demeter resumed her tantrum, Zeus considered Persephone quietly. How many seeds did you eat, daughter? He asked. Persephone told him 6. Zeus stood up from his throne, and the assembly quieted. Since Persephone has eaten 6 seeds of the pomegranate, I rule that she will spend 6 months of each year in the underworld with her husband. and 6 months tending to the mortals' fields with her mother. Neither Demeter nor Hades were completely happy with this arrangement, but Zeus had made it so. Every year Persephone returned to the fields and restored them with Demeter, and when the time came, Hades would come to her and escort her to her throne in the underworld. Each time she left, Demeter mourned and all the vegetation died. And each time Persephone returned, the earth warmed and became fertile once more. This is how the earth gained its seasons, and how a goddess of life fell in love with the underworld. And that is the tale of Hades and Persephone. Thank you for listening to our story. If you enjoyed it, please take a look at our Patreon page to learn how you can earn great rewards while supporting us. We appreciate even the smallest contributions, as they allow us to continue to release new stories every week for free on Wednesdays, and also provide bonus stories for your listening pleasure. Visit us at theskaldscircle.com to view our story archive, sorted by origin and region, and to stay up to date with all of our current developments. Once again, thank you for listening to our story.